Hi everyone, it's Grant Abbott speaking, and let's have a look at estate planning for accountants and financial planners. I've got my mate Tony on board, which is great. So Tony will be popping in and out a little bit later on. I'll ask him a few questions around it, and particularly around the Abbott-Family letter, so I'll cover that. And I want to give a really good a shout out to everyone who has been supporting the LightYear Docs platform. At the moment, wills are very hot, as is the Protector. For those of you who haven't registered, we're doing a session with Tim Munro today at 12:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, where we're going to go through the Protector, which to me is probably the best strategy I've seen for a long time. But here we are right in the midst of estate planning, wills and EPOAs, and it's really crucial for not only ourselves but also our clients to have up-to-date EPOAs and also wills. We don't know the world that we're going into, but if yourself or a client, or even my daughter is quarantined for a while, who has an ability to transact on their bank account, who has the ability to sell down their shares if need be, if the market is tanking, who's able to come and take that money from the superannuation fund if she's desperately needed. So EPOAs to me are probably the number one at the moment and should be across the whole family. Once we're over 18, everyone in the family, from grandma, grandpa, kids to grandkids, all need to have an EPOA, and that's where we need to stand in. For wills, obviously, if you have a look at my daughter, she virtually hasn't got any assets, and if you do, it's probably my least assets anyway. So wills aren't overly big for her until she gets life insurance. But once we start to have kids, get a bit more equity, etc., then wills become ever more important. Then as we get down even further down the track and we now build up quite a bit of wealth, a few investment properties, we've got a few kids, they get adult life, they now start to plant their own seeds, so to speak, and some work out well and we have troubles with others. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast of being families, particularly when we're going through these hard times. Then we might find that the wills that we're building need something a little bit more complex. You need to have a testamentary trust. Even in some instances, we might want to have what we call optional testamentary trust, so that if I give a property to my son and he's he knows what he's doing, it still may give him the opportunity of setting up an optional testamentary trust. So then he can look after his grandkids and they'll fall in, and or look after his kids, but the grandkids of the testator, so that he can then access the ordinary average marginal tax rates. But then there's some kids, really we might want to give them a bequest, but essentially we want to make sure that the testamentary trust is mandatory. There's conditions on whether they can take capital or income and stuff like that. So that's the higher end of the spectrum. So we've got all of that on LightYear Docs, but the issue is obviously there's a huge opportunity at the moment. You're never ever going to get an opportunity like this in all your professional life to get clients focused in on death, sickness, and dying. So it's not a good thing, but it's also a bad thing for them if they're not prepared, because if you are quarantined or you're sick and you think of all the transactions that may well need to be completed without an enduring power of attorney, you're going to have to go to the court, and then bing bang, sorry about that, the courts are closed. So effectively you just have to write that person off financially and health-wise because no one's got their power of attorney. So that's really crucial. There's a huge amount of opportunity, but we also need to understand the legalities of it. Is the major concern, obviously, for all accountants and financial planners, is that do we, can we actually help our clients along this, or do we need to send them off to lawyers, which is typically the position in the past. Now, probably over the last maybe 5 to 8 years, there's been a number of legal firms, such as View Legal, Top Docs, a lot of those ones who have got a facilitated estate planning process, whereby the accountant or financial planner does all the data capture, has that data capture, sends it off to the legal firm prepares the trust deed, and then will then have a 1 hour session, generally not face-to-face anymore. I think face-to-face is out, but a Zoom session with the client, sign off, and then hold that document in their vault and then off and running, which is probably a lot more streamlined digital version than the typical sessions that we have with lawyers at the moment. We've taken a little bit further, so we actually provide different sort of solutions to enable you to do the data capture, and then through LightYear Docs, run the system yourself. But let's just go through, and I'll show you where there's 3 different options there for you to choose. Now, of course, the coronavirus has brought all of our lives into perspective. In the US, I read an article that online wills are absolutely going crazy. Now, it'd be quite easy for us at LightYear Docs to go out and start to push out online wills out to the general population and probably do quite well at it. However, our mission and our forte always has been to build a business that is there for accountants and financial planners, a business-to-business offering. You know, from our perspective is that if your client is looked after through our strategies, through our documents, and they're happy, then we're happy that we've actually been there to serve you. We don't want to go direct to the clients at all, and so our preference is to work through you guys. So we need to tailor legally and professionally the opportunity for you, so that you can use our marketing skills, our tools, our data capture in the most simplest form, so that you can prepare the best wills and EPOAs on the planet. Anyway, I have to admit, there's never really been a time in my life, and I'm sure many of you, where the possibility of infirmity, quarantining, raging sickness and possible death has been so in my face. I'm a bit younger, but I understand that in the 50s that the polio epidemic was a similar sort of thing that went through, and obviously SARS, which was the first time a coronavirus popped up from, again, China, that ended up washing out. They didn't end up doing a vaccine because it washed out pretty quickly. Now this one obviously is a lot more virulent, I think that's the word. So for us, it's a time to look at our family in terms of protection, and also what happens if, if we get sick, if we are in a raging fever, if we end up passing away, or one of our family passes away, is everyone's affairs in order, and that's crucial. So now the LightYear Docs Wills and Enduring Powers of Attorney suite are built with accountant and financial planner in mind. So again, we've got client communications there for you. We've got client data captures, and then you'll see in our systems that the interview fields basically follow the data capture that you'll get from the clients. So that when we have a look at it from that perspective is you're really facilitating the process, and there's been quite a lot of legal discourse around this from a lot of the major law firms about the facilitation by accountants and planners of that data capture process, so that not only can you be in control of the client, but more importantly, there's a financial incentive if you're in control of the client to look after them. Now, all our documents are signed off by Abbott, Morley lawyers and advisors, and I do want to go down to the 3 options there for us. So I'll have a look, before we get to the 3 options, I want to have a look at the Abbott and Morley advice that Tony has provided. So I'll go through that, then we'll get Tony on to cover that, so you know exactly where you stand from an accounting point of view. Then when we have a look at that, I want to also have a look, because I know, for example, companies like now Infinity, who are now with Class, my understanding is that, well, View Legal no longer signs off now Infinity documents. So that leaves a bit of exposure, and I'll talk to Tony around that. And you really need to, whatever system you're using, find out what protections you do get in terms of legal sign-off. When we get to EPOAs, the good thing about that is they're straight from the government website. So your clients and yourself can actually just jump on, do an EPOA in Queensland, come straight off the website, fill in the data yourself, and then you're off and running. So it virtually costs nothing. We provide it on our system. You can go through the same facilitation process, but our documents are virtually exactly word for word, look and feel the same as all the state and territory EPOAs. I want to go and show you the EPOAs later. I've got to load up Tasmania and I think Northern Territory or ACT, but we do have those within the system. I've just been too busy getting this up and running and trying to get my head around all of the stuff with the coronavirus, which is good. But feel free and safe to know that we're running very lean and mean at LightYear Docs, so we haven't got any problems around staffing. We all work remotely anyway, right from the start, so that we've always had virtual offices. I know Tony is sitting down in his lovely little home office in Bundoora in Victoria. I'm up in Sunshine Coast. Ashley's in her place in Toowoomba or Indooroopilly. I know Michael's down the Gold Coast, who's our CFO, and then we've got a couple of the staff over in Manila, our template developer, and so we've always worked remotely. So for us, we're pretty well placed and can position different resources when we get that extra support. The wills, we go from basic, as I said, I'll have a look at that, to the complex, but the complex is going to be where there's potentially family issues. Now, where we go basic, we'll look at really that's just a straight data capture, and you can facilitate that whole process for the client. And I want you to take that in board when we go through Tony's letter, and then we'll cover with Tony. But when it does get to a lot of potential family provisions, challenges and issues, you may want to set up a file with Tony and facilitate the process so that the letter or the wills and testamentary trusts effectively come out through the Abbott-Family that's signed off by Tony rather than generally by yourselves or the clients. So let's have a review of what we've got available. So the first one I'm going to look at is the letter from Abbott-Family. So if I've got that here, I think, no, I haven't got that. Let me just go and have a look. It's something I said. So I had to set my little system up because I have a little problem sometimes with my system. And my Word, when I use, I don't know, if I get these big documents, it just goes a little bit crazy. So apologise for that one. So this is a whole lot of stuff and materials that I sent through to Tim, and in particular in the links we sent this Abbott-Family letter of advice, which if you like to, what I'll do is after this I'll actually send this to you guys as well, so you'll have a good handle of what we're going through. Sol Makunski, everything that we do at LightYear Docs, and also I Love SMSF, is recorded. When it's recorded, that's a really good question. You'll see here is our system here. What have I got here? Okay, I've got the Will and Testamentary Trust. So we're going to have a look at that very shortly. So that's our new product up and running. That's the more complex one. So I'm going to look through that. We'll build that for you. But so when you sign in, you can sign in. There's 3 levels. There's obviously a basic level. So as soon as you register, you're going to have a look at this field, and then you can go and pay as you go. But we do have a lot of people who want the CPD technical and strategy support from Tony and myself. That's $7.95 a month, and we've got licensees who pay so much a year. I think it's $6,950 a year. So again, once you start to tote it up and have a look at it, you'll find out where you are. But the main thing is, if you go to the support center here, we've got a couple of things. We've got our strategy info and advice toolkits. So I'll be looking at this, the Protector letter this afternoon. But you can see here there's our wills and EPOA retail pricing list. So it's the amount that you would charge the client, but that's you charging the client, and then you work with Abbott-Family later if you need be. And there's the enduring power of attorney will and letter with data capture, which I'll look at shortly as well. Now, with our webinars and training videos, as I said, Sol, you can see here last week we did the LightYear Docs will and EPOA package. So I'm not going to go through that one. I'm going to show you where that sits, but that's our basic will with EPOA. So I love doing that one. But this one we're doing today, which is the 26th of March, by this afternoon, that will come up here in our strategy webinars. So if you have to jump out or you're doing something else, just know that it's going to basically be there for you. So let's go and have a look at Tony's letter. As you can see, it's signed off by Abbott-Family. So LightYear Docs uses exclusion from the provision of legal advice for documents. So that to me is a pretty strong one. So we received a request to provide advice in relation to whether users of the LightYear Docs documentation, structure and strategy management platform are engaging or providing legal advice or legal services to their clients, in particular for simpler estate planning such as wills and enduring power of attorney. So who is Abbott-Family? Abbott-Family is a boutique firm of solicitors registered practice Australia-wide, including New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland. That means we still can cover South Australia and West Australia, and I'll get Tony on very shortly to talk about that. The firm specialises in tax structuring, self-managed super fund advice, tax and superannuation litigation, estate planning, corporate insolvency and general commercial law. As required by any legal practice operating as a law firm, Abbott-Family has professional indemnity insurance cover of $2 million per claim. I think I've actually got up here, we've got, I'm not sure if you've seen in the Abbott-Family website. So let me just go in and I think I've got it. Okay, abbott-family.com.au. And so when you have a look at that, that gives the site, so all our contact details and Tony's contact details are there. So you can go and have a look at the team. There's me, Grant, and then obviously Tony is sitting there. So you can contact us at any point in time just through the system and with any particular questions. So that's essentially there. Let's go back in a little bit further on. So we've got the key things there is you've got a $2 million potential PI cover, which is from Abbott-Family. So let's go through the executive summary. As you can see, the letter itself, Tony has done a very detailed letter on this. Like the key stuff here, I'll send this letter out to you anyway, but the key stuff is, in summary, we advise, subject to the Legal Professionals Uniform Law Application Act, and this is through each state, we confirm that LightYear Docs users are not engaging in legal practice, legal advice and or legal services, provided they are using document templates for structures only and do not change the underlying word of the documents, except to insert relevant details such as members' names, directors' names, registered office addresses, shareholders, and so on. We further confirm generally accountants and financial planners are not in breach of the provisions of the Legal Profession Uniform Law Application Act, as these users are in the business, amongst other services, of providing accounting or financial planning advice, not legal advice nor a legal service, nor are the users engaging in legal practice, which is important. In some, and this is important, in some complex areas such as insertion of a varied range of client structures into SMSF will or other such documents, that the user must be mindful to the extent to which a document is being drafted by the user, rather than merely the administrative tasking and completing a firm where the relevant fields are inserted into and reviewed and signed off, signed legal document provided by Abbott-Family. So what we've done is we've made sure that our system closely follows the data capture. And where Tony comes from in terms of this is he goes through the Legal Professions Uniform Act, and then actions that are legal services. Okay, so it's the drawing and drafting of documents of a legal nature, giving legal advice, which is crazy because essentially, you know, we all of us, whether accountants or planners, particularly if you're a tax agent, you're giving legal advice around the tax side as well. And using the name of barrister, solicitor, or legal practitioner. So there's no way I can call myself a lawyer because I haven't gone through that process, but I am a specialist consultant. So I'll get Tony on very shortly to do that. Now, actions that are not legal advice. So this is straight out of Cornell and Nagel and the various things. Examples include, so this is straight out of the law, clerical administrative tasks such as inserting people's names in documents, selling of legal documents, advising of incidental legal requirements by a person in pursuit of an occupation other than law, tax agents advising on the requirements of tax legislation. So we've got some pretty wide open there, but again, I'll send this letter through so you have an understanding. Now, are you there, Tony? Maybe Tony's not there at the moment. Let me just check to see. Yeah, oh, sorry, he's dropped off at the moment. So that's okay. So hopefully he'll come back on very shortly. Okay, so unfortunately he wasn't on as a panelist, but look, I'll send this letter out and take it from there a little bit later on. So sorry about that, Tony. Stole your thunder there, but look, if you want to just have a chat with Tony, he's in the chat room. So feel free to have a chat, ask him any questions, so on and so forth. So that's easy. Just go to the Zoom webinar chat and take it from there. So sorry about that, Tony. I thought you were a panelist. Okay, so we've got that one. Now let's go through and have a look at firstly the letters that we have. So the first one is our new letter, which will be uploaded very shortly to the support centre. So remember, Sol and everyone else, go to the support centre. So this is going to be a new client will and enduring power of alert attorney letter. So what I've done is I've just given it a little bit of a wee tweak so it focuses more on coronavirus. Again, I'll send you a link to this letter when we, because everyone is registered today, I'll send you out a video of this, a link to the letter, and definitely Tony's letter as well. So I don't want to go through, but the main thing there is that the coronavirus having an impact on society. Many of our clients are Australians, and for that matter, so this is a letter that you would write to the client. Alternatively, you can just put this on an email if you're using Practice Ignition or something like that. And obviously the headline is must do enduring powers of attorney and will. And this is the copy. So you can leave this as copy or change it. That's why we give it as a docx. So the coronavirus having impact on society. Many of our clients, Australians for that matter, people across the globe are concerned for their own safety and that of the family. And that's the truth on that one. We're asking, and a lot of us have got, I know Tony's got a lot of family over in Greece. Most of my family are over in Adelaide. In fact, with Adelaide, mum and dad are in the first nursing home that was locked down. I don't know if you saw it a couple of, about 10 days ago, and that opens up again on the 30th. So again, we're all impacted by our family on this one. We're asking ourselves a whole range of questions, including what happens if I or one of my family get the virus? Will it spiral out of control? What about the elderly members of the family over 60 who seem to be more susceptible? So I was actually having a chat with my brother this morning and saying, what happens if Charles goes? That means that now Wills is the next in the line of the throne, but I can't imagine Charles will because he's a pretty strong old codger, that boy. Anyway, we don't have answers to these questions, but what we do know is that it's important, if not vital, to ensure that while fit, competent, and able, that you safeguard your financial affairs by giving a spouse, relative, close associate your enduring power of attorney. Hallelujah to that one. So to me, EPOAs are absolutely crucial. Now, for that, we actually need to ensure, so this enables your EPOA or your enduring power of attorney to act on your behalf if you become sick, which is important, are quarantined for a long time, or become incapable of managing your financial health affairs. Now, for those clients, in addition, your EPO may be given the power to take your position as a trustee of a self-managed super fund if your deed allows. Each state has its own LPA, so there's a typo there, own EPOA legal requirements, which we are on top of. Well, you must, because if you're using our system, they're all state-based anyway. Apart from an EPOA, it's also important to put in place a will or revisit your will if it has not been looked at in the last 2 years. The coronavirus shows us that change can happen quickly and must prepare for change. A great safeguard at this very moment is to put in place enduring power of attorney and create or update your will and that of your closest loved ones. So many young families, and this is just so sad, particularly when we look at it, have neither document, relying on the courts to solve these issues. Either courts may be quarantined or closed, which they are at the moment. We're now in a position to quickly draft your EPO and will along with close family members, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we go through. And we talk about the importance of getting the executor. It's not just the first person who's the executor. And the way we prefer to work at LightYear Docs to make it easier for you in data capture, usually the person who's their enduring power of attorney. So if it goes, for example, for me, goes to my daughter, Sophia, then she would be my enduring power of attorney and then also the executor of my estate. She's only 22, so I've got my brother Nigel and also my wife Amanda to be my joint EPOAs and joint executors. Now, if they're not around, it then jumps down to my brother Chris. So we have a succession plan in place. If you can get that, then that's basically the main one. So you want to build a line of EPOAs and executors. Now, the 3-step process that you're sending out to the clients is, as your advisor, we strongly recommend that together we undertake a fast and simple 3-step process to implement your EPOA and will. And we need to do this really quickly. And Tony and I will tell you that we've been working with accountants. Clients want this stuff turned around very quickly. So complete the data capture attached, send to us as soon as possible so we can draft your EPOA and will. We will get together, so you'll get together with the clients, review their data capture because you've actually inserted the data capture with them, print it off, go through with them and ask them questions to make sure it's tax efficient, covers all bases. Remember the exemption, we're looking at, you're advising them from tax and structuring and other issues there. You're not acting as the legal advisor. Tell them you're not acting as a legal advisor. Now, if need be, depending on your family circumstances, we may need to have a meeting or teleconference with lawyers from Abbott-Family to check the EPOA and will plus witness the will. However, this may not be necessary. Again, it depends on how complex it is. If there's even an inkling that the will is going to be challenged, or more importantly, you're drifting into testamentary trust, so they want to ensure that going to keep away, like we had one client yesterday who wants for his children, they had quite a lot of life insurance. They're only in their early 40s. And then they wanted to make sure that those amounts of money were to be held for the children on trust. And more importantly, the kids weren't able to access capital until age 25. But the only beneficiaries were their bloodline lineage. So for their children and their children's children had to be of the DNA of the parents, and excluded spouses, and also excluded, obviously, children from the spouse who are not bloodline. So again, this is, once you start getting into that, that's a lot more complex drafting because we need to go and put in separate clauses within there. But if you need that sort of thing, if it doesn't work stock stand, I'm going to take you to our wills and testamentary trusts. If you go through that process, then I'll go through the 3-step process, also 3 options where you can get Tony involved. Now, we are very busy at the moment, but our clients' EPO wills top the list for our priorities. And then you work out, so here, to do an EPO and will with our recommended price, well, sorry, not Abbott-Family, but the recommended price for you to charge. Generally, most of our advisors are charging $1,050 for one person or $1,700 per couple. Now, if you go to a testamentary trust, then it's actually going to be obviously a lot more than that because you will start to bring in our services. But again, have a look at that. So the data capture EPO will, who's to be enduring power of attorney executor, write their name down there. Then if they're not alive, who's the next one, who's the next in line. Enduring power of attorney, then you'll see with the system, it actually picks up their SMSF if they've got one, financial, and then personal and health. So that's not a big issue there. But if they want to have some guidance or they want to put terms and conditions, they can put that in there. But if we start to go down that, then, you probably, they might want to put in, for example, that any healthcare to be provided is 5-star, or whatever. So if I want to put that sort of stuff in there, but most honestly, to tell you the truth, I've seen probably at least, hundreds and hundreds of EPOAs prepared by lawyers, and usually there's no T's and C's around it as well. They're exactly taken off from state-based stuff. So again, if you want to go there, we can go and have a chat with Tony anyway. Now, with the wills, I just want to take you first. This is the process that we're talking to the clients and why ours is different. So the data capture, as you can see, is not a very long one compared to what I've seen from some of the ones from lawyers, because honestly, they're too complex. We want to get it into a good, basic, strong format. So I'll take you through the top. So the first one is to appoint the executors. And then it's the first executor, they could be joint, then the second, and maybe the third if need be. So you've just got to be really careful about who's the executor. And the good thing, as I said, whoever's going to be executor, encourage the client to also have them as the enduring power of attorney, and then the second line, or third line, so on and so forth. Now, after appointing a chain of executors to manage your estate, the next step is to guide your executor with your desire to make a specific gift to a spouse, child, grandchild, or other person. So rather than if we don't do any specific gifts, we can put everything into what we call the residual estate, or that's the remaining estate. My preference, though, is start to look at specific gifts. So, for example, if you've got a house which is tenant in common, you could do a life interest if you wanted to, and I'll show you how to do that. Alternatively, just gift that half to the my spouse. So, for example, I can say my interest in my property at 5 Smith. Oh, can't even spell it. So just let me get my Smith Street, Sydney, is to go to my spouse, Sally, if she is alive. Now, if she's not alive, then obviously that's an issue. Now, we're going to come around to that one. And we go, so that's all you need to put in there. Specific bequest number 2. So my Porsche convertible, Porsche, so I can't even spell it. My Porsche convertible to go to my son, Matthew. All of my personal effects and jewelry. I can never spell jewelry on purpose. Oh, yeah, jewelry. So I think that's the American version. Is to be distributed by my executor on a fair and reasonable basis. So look, it doesn't matter. I mean, whatever. But remember, this is the client doing that. So you want to encourage the clients to effectively. You want to ask the clients to try and complete as many specific gifts. Now, the good thing, I'll wait and I'll show you where that fits in. So they do all their specific gifts, and then what's left over is called the remaining estate, or at law we call it the residual estate. So for that, then we work out the main beneficiaries. So main beneficiary is my spouse, Sally. If she's not alive, then who's going to get it? So my 2 kids, Matthew and Marie. So if they're not alive, who's going to get it? So it could be, for example, their children or the cancer. I've just done one for that. So once I've done that, you've got enough data there to really start to build a good, solid will and also EPOA. So again, if you see on your chat line, you can see there, if you ever want to have any questions, you can tanamoulis at abbottmorley.com.au, but I'll send all these details, these phone details out later on. And so sorry, Tony, I mean, we always love your erudite comments, etc. So that's the EPOA and also the will. Now, once that gets through, you can then start to go in and build. So we just jump in and we go from there into our LightYear Docs system. I'll actually bounce out of there because that's been open for a while. Unfortunately, if you open it for a while, you'll end up with an invalid session. So we find that the best system to use, I'm using Chrome, it seems the best system to use is Edge. So make sure that you can see here the latest Microsoft Edge is pretty well supported by the Hot Docs platform, which is owned by Abacus Next, which is where we build our system around. Now, I'm an LY strategist, and for that, I can then have unlimited documents, which is what we want. So that's the LY will with a Testamentary Trust. If we go into our product categories and have a look at our estate planning, so I'll just bounce down there. Oops, so come on, let me go. It's not too bad. The internet's been terrible the last few days, but everyone working from home. So here's our estate planning. You've got the LYD will. Now the LYD will, there's no testamentary trust on that. It's $99. So that's just a basic stock standard. You get the data capture, you chuck it in, and then it's ready for the client to look at. There'll then be a disclaimer on there that effectively this is not legal advice. You've only simply helped them in terms of the preparation of the will through the data capture. and advise them around tax and other consequences around that. So with that one, the client is well aware. So that's the LYD will, and that's a very easy one to do. The other one you might want to do is, if you're doing an EPOA and will, you actually do the same together. So it's the same sort of thing. I won't go into it in any great detail. I'll start the document. In fact, I've got. I did do this. You can see, I'll go and take you, see the conference here. These are all the documents that we did over a 2-day period. We did SMSF wills, dependency declarations, family allowance. That's a great one. Family allowance, great way to get rid of the the taxable component charge on the death benefits. So that's an absolute crucial. Account-based pension, related party LRBAs, the protector, which I'll be going through, Tim, today. The moat, we won't go through at this stage. Let's just keep things basic. Investment strategies, EPOA, will, and whatever. So you can see here, I've gone in and changed it quite a few times. So I won't go into it in any great detail. Safe to say that what we're doing here is we're doing both an enduring power of attorney and a will. Now the costing on that is $198 if you pay as you go, which is a great, well, for me it's great value. If you're an LY strategist or LY firm, then, or licensee, then it's unlimited. So the more you do, the better. So the way it works is there's simply 2 documents. It's enduring power of attorney, and then there's the LYD will. Now, what we will do is there'll be another product out, which will be the LYD will and the last will and, the LYD will with Testamentary Trust. So that will be a separate product if you wanted to do that. Now, the best thing to do is always when we're doing this, because there's a whole lot of different parties coming through the system, we want to use all these common parties. So what you want to do is put down, obviously, the testator's name, his wife's name, his kids' names, all of that. You can even put down, if they're executors and friends, put that all down, which I'm going to have a look at a little bit later on. So the more common parties, we then jump into enduring power of attorney. We've got the principal there being John Smith. So I did John. If I want to do Sally, I could just go through the process there. Has she got an overseas address? No. If I go yes, you can see then we obviously have to put that in there. So I'm going to go, is this an overseas address? We've got yes or no or whatever. So that comes in for Sally. I'll just chunk that around, I think. There we go. So I'll go back to John Smith. We've got the attorney there. So that's the first one. So that's Max, the son. We've got the replacement attorney being joint. So in the event of death or incapacity, initial attorney, do you wish to automatically appoint a replacement? You've got yes. So if Matthew is incapacitated and quarantined or dead or doesn't want to do it, then I've put in joint, which is Sally and also Jody. And then we go down to the powers of attorney. Is it a joint? Well, the first one is, but the first one wasn't, because remember, it's just Matthew. So now to act on behalf of the principal for the superannuation fund, do anything on behalf of the principal. And then we go down to the last will and testament, which is basic. So we've got all that sort of data there. But so that's the basic one. Let me go back in and have a look at the one with the Testamentary Trust, so you get a really good feeling for that one. So when we go down here, I'll just go into the system that we've got here. Oops, sorry, not that one. Don't want to go there. Let's go in and have a look at our product categories. And I'm going to go down here to estate planning. Remember, I was in there before. So I'll just go down into estate planning. And you can see there, this is the EPOA and will automation. If you just want a simple will, that's the place. But then we've got enduring powers of attorney. So if you just want to do that, it's $99. So ACT, Queensland, Western Australia, New South Wales, South Australia. And I'm missing, where else? Oh, there's Victoria. So the ones I haven't put up yet, which are in the system, are both Northern Territory and Tasmania. So I promised to get those up by tomorrow. So they'll be up tomorrow. You've got an SMSF will there, which is essentially just a really fancy version of a binding death benefit nomination. We've done a lot of market research, and it's easier for clients to understand an SMSF will. So it's a will around your superannuation benefits, which also encompasses death benefit, SMSF death benefits trust, which aren't out of the estate. They actually come straight out of the SMSF, but that's a whole new ball game. So we'll leave that aside. We're just focusing on now on wills and EPOAs. We've got the moat. The family allowance, as I said, the family allowance is a way of making a family financially dependent on a member, so it ties in beautifully with the SMSF will, so that if amounts paid to an adult or either an adult child or their children, so a grandchild, effectively it would be tax-free. But again, that's another story. I spent a couple of hours on that at the recent 2-day conference. We've got the LYD will with Testamentary Trusts. So what will happen though is we're building now the LYD will, Testamentary Trust, and EPOA. So that's the two difference. Basic LYD will with Testamentary Trust is $198, and that's simply because it's obviously it's a more expensive package that you'll be charging for your clients. And I will get around to the 3 options. So let's just bounce into there. Start the document. So we're going through the process. So this is only just loaded up. So I'm going to put in the conference again, put it in, start it off. As I said, sometimes it's flaky. Edge is the best, but I use Chrome and I've never had any problems with my system. But have a read of this, the platform update. We will be doing a bit of system maintenance tomorrow, and hopefully not tomorrow, but on the weekend. So the first thing is, you can see there I put it into the conference. So what I need to do is actually now say, well, this is the Smith will TT. Now, what I want to do is save answers along the way. And then if I save answers, I have to go and get a cup of coffee or get called on the phone, you don't want to leave it too long. Save the answers. If you're called away, save them, and then you find them in your in-progress docs. So if you have a look at that one, it's there you go. You can see LYD will with Testamentary Trusts basically sitting there. So that's the Smith will TT. So we can find that essentially there. So I go back here into the system. The system will pop up, and I need to have a logo. So if you're one of our strategist members, LY strategists, LY firm or licensees, you need to send us a high-res version of your logo, and then you can put that in, and you can use that logo for the purposes of white labelling the documents. But for wills and testamentary trusts, particularly this one, I'd suggest you want to use Abbott-Family. For the basic ones, you can even go unbranded if you wanted to do that. It's not a bad idea. Now, we want to put in the common parties. Now, this is going to just take me a little while, but that's okay. So what I want to do is I want to put in John. It's important. The more we put in here, the easier. So John is going to be our testator, and I'm going to show you a little trick a little bit later on. In fact, I'll probably show that for our licensees and so on further. Now, John's our testator, so add another. So I'm going to put in, remember we're doing a will, so I'm going to put in his wife, Sally Smith. She's going to live with him, obviously. So that's Sydney. We will make a system. Soon we'll be integrating with XPM or Xero. So a lot of this will be easier, but you'll be able to pull this data from Xero Practice Manager, but now you're not going to have this in. And this is his son. His son's a stockbroker, so he lives at 100 Brown Street, Airline, New South Wales, 2095. We're going to then add his sister, or the daughter of Sally and also John, and she lives at 100 Jones Street, lives in Melbourne, and that is Victoria, 3000. So then we're going to put in, well, we can put in then the kids. So Marie hasn't got any children at the moment, but Matthew has got 2 children. So I've got Ben, who's age 21. Oops, Ben Smith. He lives with his dad, who's Matthew. We will have all of this stuff coming down. So I've got Ben there. He lives with his dad, and that's at Fairlight, New South Wales, 2095. And then we'll add another one. So Ben's brother is William, young Wills. Imagine if young Wills, imagine if both Charles and Wills weren't around, it'd end up being young George. So he's only 16 years of age, still at school, off school at the moment because of the coronavirus. So 2094. Now we add another. So I'm going to put in there John Jones, and he's the best mate. So John lives at 10 Anchorage Circuit, which is basically where I live. Oops, Circuity. There you go, could be an overseas address. And we will put overseas address in this one. So that is at Twin Waters, Queensland, and that is 5094. So he's the executor. So once we've got that, we're pretty well right into the system. Okay, so if we go through that one, because someone just said, is there any reason I can't find Abbott-Family on Google? Yep, but he said, okay, yeah, it's there. So Abbott-Family is there. So for a couple, do we have to do 2 separate EPOAs and 2 separate wills? Yes. So we can do a mirror one on that. But I will show you, if we can just focus in on doing the basic one, do it for one person first. And then once you've done one person, then come back to me and I'll show you how to do the separate one, like a mirror one, if that makes sense. So once you've done that, just let's keep it basic, and that's what traditionally we do, and do it from there. So look, the more common parties I put in there, the better it is for our perspective. And again, we will come to, if you've seen the EPOA will, which I just did, EPOA and basic will, which generally is going to be for most of your clients, I have put on overseas addresses. The one I'm looking at now is for Testamentary Trusts. So let's go through the general. So I'm going to leave the date open because I don't know when the client's going to execute. Is there a life interest? Now, if they've got joint ownership of the property, then you'd say no. So there's no life interest. So life interest is you've got a property and then the spouse can live in it for her life. And if you choose that, if you go yes, because it's in the name of, say, the husband, for example, the wife can live in it for life. It might be a second wife, for example. Then there's a whole lot of T's and C's that pop up around that one. So the testator, now this is where it actually makes it a lot easier. Now, look at this one. To make things smooth and efficient when a person passes, it's important to have a professional such as yourself looking after managing the process of any testamentary trust. So to select the testator, by building all these common parties, all I have to do is just go to John. And Karamjeet, if you have a look when we come later, I'll show you. I could easily, once I've done all John, I can then switch to Sally, but there's a special technical purpose around that one. Now, you need to put your details in here. So let's say it's Tim. In fact, what I'll do is I'll do it Michael F. Reese, so there's 2 F's there, from I Love Accounting. So if Michael's doing this for his client, he puts himself in as a professional advisor, absolutely crucial. Now the executor, let's go with Matthew, relation to the testator as the son, and I want to add another, so it's joint. I'm going to put in John Jones, and here it is, he is best friend. So that's all come from, how do we know who's going to be the executor? Well, that's pretty easy because they've completed the data capture. So if they've got like Matthew and John Jones, then that is where we get it. So we get that and we put that and insert that into our system, which we've got there. Now, I'm not going to do 3, but what I will do, if those guys are not alive or they're in quarantine or they're on a cruise ship somewhere, so they haven't got access, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make Sally his wife and also Marie as the next in line. Now, we don't need to put in their details, you know, with their best mates or son, because you know, this is a long way down the track. But it's, again, get your clients in to think about this length as well. Now, when it comes around to doing joint power of attorney, I'd say it's going to be Matthew rather than John, Matthew, then Sally and Marie. But that'll be a bit later on when we incorporate that. So remember we said, is there a specific gift? So yes, because that's the first one we want to do. Now, who's going to actually pay the expenses? Generally, the best one is to do the estate. Now we go into the specific gifts. So the more common parties there, I've got it in there. So it works in really well. So the first one I'm going to do is Sally Smith, who's my spouse. And it's going to be, what did I get from the data capture? So let me just go down here. So I'm going to go, here you go. I just copy that one. And oops, sorry, that's Abbott-Family website. And I'll put that in there. So does everyone follow that one? Now, do we want this asset to go in testamentary trust? No, I don't. So that's, oops, sorry, no, I don't. Now I have to add another one. So I've got to go back to my data capture again. Now my Porsche convertible to go my son, Matthew. So I copy and paste that. So again, you can see Matthew Smith, he's my child, and then I just go copy and paste there. Now I'm not going to put that into a testamentary trust because it's just a basic Porsche. Next one is I go down to my data capture, and all personal maturities are distributed by my executor. Yes. And then what I'll do there is I go back into my system, add another. And then what I do is, okay, so my executor, and then we go here. So that's all the personal effects. Is that to go in personal effect? No. Now let's go in and I'll just do another data capture just to show you the difference. $100,000 each to be put in trust for my grandchildren, what's the name? Ben and William, until age 25. So everyone follow that one? So I just do that one. So it's each. So I'll go Control C, go back in here. So I'm going to add another. So I've got Ben, and he's the grandchild. So I'll press that. So I'll get that. So that's just Ben's getting $100,000. So grandchild. So it's not grandchildren. Now, is this going to get on a testamentary trust? Ben is age 21, so we can choose. But let's say yes, but is the gift automatically transferred to the testamentary trust? Let's go no. Is the spouse, well, he hasn't got a spouse yet, so it's no. Is the secondary beneficiary to be bloodline lineage? Yes. So again, if he gets married, has children from that spouse who's not bloodline, then they're excluded from it. So this is a testamentary trust. Are there any related entities that may have an interest? At the moment, no. Is a primary beneficiary the appointor? Yes. So they're old enough there. And you can put any further T's and C's in there. So the trustee is not to pay out any capital until age 25. Now you can see this is completely different from our basic will. We're doing a lot more tailoring. I'll try and rush through it anyway. Now we're going to add another. I've got to put in William there, grandchild, put in the asset there. So this is William. So to my grandchild, William, until age 25. Is it going to go into a testamentary trust? Absolutely. So we put it in there. It's going to be automatically transferred. So there's no option. If it's not automatically transferred, it means it's up to the executor and Ben in the first one to make the transfer. Do you want secondary bloodline? Absolutely. Are there any related entities? No. Now we've taken out the spouse there. Is it primary beneficiary? No. So then we can put again some terms and conditions. No capital until age 25. So we go in through that one, and so then we go next. Now for social media accounts, who's going to get that? Well, let's go give those to Matthew. So all John's social media accounts, do they want to go to testamentary trust? No. Main beneficiary, So remember, after I've done all those specific gifts, whatever's left over, let's go to Sally, who's the spouse. Do we want to go to Testamentary Trust? No, we could put an optional Testamentary Trust there if we want. Residual beneficiaries, let's say we've got Matthew. So if Sally's not alive, she's going to get 50%. Do we want to go into Testamentary Trust? No, actually just put a number there. So again, the sort of child, I've got to fix all this. You've got to make sure that you click all the buttons. And then we go down to add another. The other 50% is to go to Marie. Do you want to go into a testamentary trust? No. So you can see you can build a lot of testamentary trust. Pet guardianship, name of the guardian. Let's say it's Marie. Let's say it's Bertha. Sorry, let's say it's my pig. Name of the pig is Bert. Terms and conditions. $5,000 in living expenses plus 5 years of pet insurance. I'm almost finished, so if you so 5 years of pet insurance, so that goes down there. And then the binding votes, remember this was between Matthew and John. Remember they're executors. Matthew's got, if it's tied, Matthew, second we go selling. So you can see there, it's pretty sophisticated. You might want to have a look at this again on a number of occasions. We'll have a look at the documents just quickly. But what I want to do is then go through the 3 options because we're just running a bit over time and I'm cognizant of everyone is either working from home or whatever. So I download the documents. Remember, I can always go back into the vault and change those if I want. So I get the download, I go in, fix it up if I need be, make any changes, make sure it accords, remember, with our data capture. And then what I would do is I'd go through the process. Here you can see signed up by Abbott-Family. I don't know the date. When I know the client comes in, then I go back into, when we go back into the system, I go into the vault, I go into the conference, and you'll see there, remember the LYD that I just did, the Smith will is now sitting in the vault, not my in progress. So if I wanted to, I could go back and change. I could put the date in there if I want to make any changes. So we've got here appointment of executors. I hereby appoint my son Matthew, my best friend John Jones, majority decision to Matthew, and then the second line if they're not available. The executor is going to be the trustee of all trusts. Provision of advice. So I've got Michael Jeffries from I Love Accounting pops in there. He's to be paid ordinary accounting fees, administration fees. The initial administration tells you what the executor has to do. So they've got to pay in debts, taxes, sell and call and convert any money, and then go through the specific bequests. So we've got all the beneficiaries of the estate. Remember we had all of those ones there as well. And then we've got Ben and also William. We've got my executors. I'm not sure why Matthew's there twice. I'll have a look at that. So specific questions, including social media and bequests, pets. You've got Sally Smith. If she survives by more than 30 days, she's to get that. Matthew's getting the Porsche. The executor is to get all of my personal effects and jewelry distributed by executor on a fair and reasonable basis. Ben gets $100,000 each to be put until age 25. In fact, I don't think, I should have made it. Okay. This entitlement was directed into a testamentary trust only upon Ben Smith's consent. Remember that was an optional. The beneficiaries attend the primary beneficiary bloodline or lineage. With Ben Smith as your appointer able to choose an successor, with Ben as the trustee and director, trustee is not to pay a capital until age 25. So we've got that. William Smith's advised me, then it has to go into the trust and has to be automatically transferred. So that's an automatic testamentary trust. Here, the social media accounts, so I didn't put their details in there. So although I did put it in to whatever, I didn't, there's obviously where I've got this, it means there's a button that I haven't completed properly. So I've got to go in and have a look at that because if Matthew's not alive, who's then to get them? Then we've got the testamentary trust conditions, which we'll refer to it a little bit later on. Then I've got Sally Smith. who basically gets everything there as a residual estate, which is basically the remaining. Otherwise, it's to be distributed 50% to Matthew, 50% into Marie. And then if not, then they can, if none of them are there, they can, it's at the discretion of the executors, or otherwise go to charity. Pet guardianship, your little piggy Bert, etc. You've got the general powers of executors, and there's a lot more T's and C's you'll see a little bit later on around testamentary trusts. So that's quite a detailed one, and you'd send that off to the client, and then obviously from that perspective, if we have a look at that perspective, send it off to the client, and then from that, the client would then come back. Now, the three options we want to just go through quickly. So for the three options for accountant or financial planner, bearing in mind, remember what we had a look at from Tony's letter. And again, feel free, I'll send that letter out, but feel free to contact Tony at any point in time. It's Tanamoulis at abbott-family.com.au. George Stubbs, when can we expect to see guardianship for minor children? Yeah, that will be up and running. We've already done, can you believe I've done pet guardianship? I haven't done child guardianship. So the next phase within the next day, George will actually be putting child guardianship and also a clause in there, which will be quite simple, just a set of wishes around what to do in terms of funeral expenses, etc. So, so the three solutions or three options is basically just do hands off. You can direct the client to the LightYear Docs website, but again, that's that's not our preferred solution, because you can see, I mean, you guys, once you do 2 or 3 of these, you're going to get practice, you're going to get a good idea, you work with Tony, so on and so forth. It's perfect. Now, again, do the data capture provided with a client engagement email letter. So send that letter out to, in fact, given the fact of where we are at the moment, it doesn't hurt to send that email out to your whole client list. Let them do the data capture and let them come back. Even if they don't want to do it, then that's fair enough. You'll see a bit later on, I've talked about the costings, but also there's a discount there if you want to use all their family. So definitely for the children, get all their EPOAs. Throw that in if you need be as a process. With that one, if it's just a straight data capture, you're doing LYD will. As I said, we're going to have a indemnity. It's just based on the data capture, and then also protects you from legal professional. But when you get into, for example, remember we had the kids and the testamentary trusts. We start to get into that more complex wills and testamentary trusts that were built there. Although the system is, as you can see, it's very intuitive the way it's done, very specific. Remember, it's a 3-step process: executors, then specific gifts, and those gifts can have testamentary trust. Then it goes into the remainder of the estate. Now, if you want to go down that process, then we will be implementing, but in the meantime, it's manual. So just contact Tony and I'll put this process into the email that goes out a little bit later on. But if you want to engage Abbott-Family, then Tony needs to open a file for legal purposes, legal professional purposes, and then you can go through that data capture, send us the documents so that you've taken the data capture to the client, so we can then use that as a base to discuss with the client. We then have a 1-hour Zoom conference, so that's with you and the client. In fact, it probably ends up usually about 30-35 minutes. So what we suggest is you go through that process there. We have a look. If there's any changes, then we can make it at our end on the changes, and it can be done pretty quickly with that system. And then from there, what we will do is we can then finalise it. And then what we can do, if we can't finalise it, then we might set another meeting, but we generally can finalise it. Tony can then see you witnessing the documents. You'll then take 3 copies. The original copy will then be sent down to Tony and put in the system. And the cost of that is $495 per person. But if it's mirror wills, Karamjeet, then what happens is you can do 2 at once, and that's $795 per person, as if they're just doing mirror wills. So that's essentially the process. Again, from our perspective, from our perspective, look, wills and EPOAs are so important right now. Your clients are going to be going to online will providers, and you can see they're not like all the ones. I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen it. Go and have a look at ClearDocs, have a look at everyone else. Like, they're very difficult to go through. Ours is simplified. We've worked on it so much. Have we got it right? yet as best as possible now, but we're continually improving. Look what we've done with investment strategies. So importantly, choose the model that suits your practice. Don't simply let the client go away. Get in front of it, get the client known, because it's front of their mind at the moment. It is a worry. I can tell you, you ask your clients, are they worried about what's going to happen to their family? Get in front, send that out as either a letter, snail mail, or send it out as an email. The email with the data capture attached is probably the best way. Flick it out to absolutely everyone. Now, we've also got the Protector this afternoon at 12:30, which is a great system. Won't go into that, but that's also crucial. We're continuously building documents. We don't go B2C, and we don't go directly to your clients. We're there to support your success. As I said, a happy client of yours is all important to us. And again, Tony, as you can see, is a super responsive lawyer for a change. And then when we have a look at that process, you know, Tony's there with you all the time. With the e-sign for wills and documents, if they're overseas and there's a lockdown there, we can show you, I can, Karamjeet, if you prepare the will, I'll then show you easily how to do an overseas e-sign, at least for their perspective. So feel free to come back to me and I'll show you how to do that quite quickly. We do that. John, thank you very much for that feedback. Sorry, Tony, that I didn't make a panelist. I thought I did. But anyway, look, it's a great system for all of us to use, and particularly at this point in time. So again, thank you all for attending. This recording, a whole lot of materials we send out to you later on this afternoon. Anyway, it's Grant Abbott and Tony Ann Willis signing off.